It's hard to miss this beautiful, visually stunning mushroom as you're strolling through the forest. This is the Cinnabar Polypore, Pycnoporus Cinnabarinus. Now this mushroom is not edible, so I wasn't foraging it to eat. However, I was foraging this mushroom so that I could experiment with some mushroom-dyed clothing. So based on my experience, this mushroom has been somewhat of a rare find. These are saprophytes, so they do feed on decaying wood. The mushroom cap is semicircular or kidney-shaped, and it's attached to fallen or dead deciduous trees, particularly oak, and it's not typically found on old or rotten wood. These mushrooms can potentially be found from spring all the way to fall. It's often found in more open areas where there might have been some logging done. This mushroom does maintain most of its bright orange color all the way through maturity. Usually they grow singly or in overlapping clusters. So as you can see here, I'm somewhat sponging this mushroom as the mushroom retains a lot of moisture and fluid, even though the conditions around it may be still dry. The cap is usually 5 inches across at the most and half an inch thick. The edge of the cap is thin, it's tough, and can be leathery. The top of the cap can be slightly fuzzy when younger and eventually graduate to being more smooth. The underside of the cap is covered with fine, bright, reddish-orange pores that are round or kind of angular. So once I got back to the cabin, I added these mushrooms to a jar of water in order to soak for a few days. I didn't show it in this clip, but I did come back to these mushrooms eventually and cut them into smaller pieces to improve the surface area to volume ratio. After a few days, the mushroom liquid dye became an orangish, reddish, brown color. So once the liquid dye was ready, we removed the Cinnabar Polypore caps from the jar. The mushroom dye water did have a smell of stinky old socks, but that didn't stop the experiment of this mushroom dyed shirt. One thing that I find very interesting about natural dyes is that the dye liquid doesn't always represent the color of the substance you're putting into the liquid. And also, the dye liquid color doesn't always mean that the fiber you are dyeing will turn out to be the color of the liquid. Surely, this can be frustrating if you had your heart set on a specific color. As you can see here, this bright orange mushroom created a liquid dye that is reddish brown. And this reddish brown liquid dye created a shirt that was a tan yellowish color. So after 2 or 3 days of the shirt soaking in the liquid mushroom dye, we then placed it outside so it could sun dry while allowing the dye to cure into the fibers of the shirt. Even though the t-shirt didn't end up with the same bright orange color as the Cinnabar Polypore, I was still quite pleased with the outcome. I think that the tan yellow color looks very nice. I can definitely say I would much rather prefer wearing a mushroom dyed shirt than a synthetic dyed shirt. I look forward to experimenting with other types of mushroom species as a source of dye in the future. That's gonna wrap up this mushroom dye video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next Mushroom Time.